Welcome to Sarder TV, an idea-sharing platform founded by Russell Sarder, who's an author, investor, and the CEO of Netcom Learning. We're excited to have Sunil Prashara join us today. Sunil is the CEO and president of the Project Management Institute, one of the world's largest professional organizations. And he's here to tell us more about the organization and about leading during a crisis. Sunil, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you here. So you've held senior positions at several prominent organizations, including Nokia and Vodafone, Accenture, Perot Systems. Tell us more about your career journey and how you got to where you are today.
So first of all, it's wonderful to be here. A little bit about me. I started off my career really in finance, and I qualified as an accountant many, many years ago. I had the privilege to work for Ross Perot and Perot Systems, IT company, IT outsourcing company, and cut my teeth in finance there for quite a while, for about 10 years or so. And then through Ross, got the opportunity to actually move to the other side of the business, which was sales, which is quite surprising from a finance guy into sales, but moved over into sales. I started off as a rookie sales guy working for Perot, became the European head of sales for Perot, and then got the opportunity to move on, and I joined Accenture. I was a partner at Accenture for a little while, also on business development in the IT space, and that got me to Singapore. One of my clients was Nokia, and I was again honored by Rajiv Suri, the CEO, who suggested that I would, do well as the global head of sales for Nokia. So I embarked on a sales management career after having this finance career, ended up managing the whole of Nokia Siemens Networks as the global head of sales. It's an incredible learning experience, but taught me a lot about sales. Massive organization, a huge amount of management and leadership required, a lot of transformation, a lot of change. It was a very competitive market. And so I did that for a little while, and then I was based out in Singapore. Then got the opportunity to join Vodafone. In the enterprise department of Vodafone Global Enterprise. So that's the B2B side of Vodafone, the telecoms company. And I led sales operations, and that really got me into operations. I led about a $1.8 billion project, actually. That was my first sort of sheep dipping, if you like, into the world of projects. And the CEO of Vodafone thought it would be good for me to sort of actually get that side of the side of business as well. So having had the sales and the finance side, it was good to get the ops side as well. So led this huge program over 23 countries, massive transformation for Vodafone. And then at that point decided, having sort of done that, wanted to do something a little bit more, started my own company. I thought I had the skill sets now really to start my own thing. So I started my own company that was called I12. I12 was a company that was really designed to help small startups to get on the ladder of growth and introduce them to executives of large organizations so they could almost like bypass a very stringent procurement process and go top down into these organizations and thereby accelerate their chances of success. And so I was doing that, working with I12. It grew quite nicely. And then I came across PMI a couple of years ago. And I love the fact that one of the things when I started my organization was all about giving back some of the skills I'd learned through my career to these startup organizations and then helping them on their career path. And I felt that those values and those of PMI, the Project Management Institute, really sort of gelled. And I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made a couple of years ago, and that was to join PMI, and I've been with them ever since, and I love my job. It's a great role, it's a great organization, stands for a lot of amazing things, and does incredible stuff. So I'm very happy. I feel like I've reached the role that I was made out to do.
So tell us how having the ability to work in all these various functions, finance, operations, sales, has prepared you for your role at the PMI.
Yeah, I'd say that, the obvious thing is that, having had a career in all these different sort of functional areas, I have, a fair degree of knowledge of finance and operations and sales and a fair degree of experience. As a finance guy, I worked my way up from a rookie sort of general ledger clerk, I qualified as an accountant and became, the head of finance for Europe. So I kind of like spread the whole spectrum of finance in some way. Same thing happened in sales, starting off as a rookie sales guy, worked my way up to, an international global $20 billion sales organization with Nokia. So it's obvious that you pick up the sales skills and the finance skills and the operational skills, which I think are three very important skills that you need to have as a CEO, because then you can get balance from all different perspectives. And that's an obvious one. But what I think is sort of the secret sauce of the whole thing has been the fact that how you can prioritize one versus another, and no two situations or problems are the same. And the different departments and functions and organization come at issues in a different way. So one thing I thought that I had learned by working in all these functional areas, actually I developed more when I was at PMI, and I've learned a lot more actually as a leader in the last 2 years, as bringing all these different pieces together than I did in a specialized role. So I think the specialized roles help, but having a broader perspective over all of them together at the same time makes a big difference. And then the other thing I think is I also had the opportunity to travel and live all over the world. So I lived in many, many different places: Singapore, London, India, France, all over the place. And that really, the cultural side of it, brought the people side of understanding different cultures. And myself, I'm an Indian, but I was born in Kenya, and I live in England. I did my studies in England. So very international background has helped a lot as well. So I think the three things: one is specialization in specific functional areas is been very helpful. I think then the ability to be able to prioritize between different functions and understand the language of the different functions and speak to them at their level, and so that they understand that I understand their challenges. And then also the cultural side has made a big difference for me at PMI.
Tell us more about some of the challenges you faced as president and CEO of the PMI during the pandemic.
For me personally, I think that at PMI, the biggest challenge obviously has been COVID. And I'll tell you why that was an extraordinary challenge. Well, it has been an extraordinary challenge for everyone. But on top of that, for PMI, we had embarked on a transformation, a digital transformation. And we were literally halfway through that transformation when COVID hit. And so that was a huge challenge for us, because the team at PMI have never really done transformation to that scale, that size. We literally threw every single process, workflow up in the air and reinvented everything. And we were in the process of doing that in a very structured way, as you'd expect from PMI. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and everything had to go remote. And this story is being repeated many, many times by many, many organizations. But for us, I feel it was particularly tough because our teams weren't ready for doing a transformation in the first place. So that was a big challenge, and we're coming out the other side of that. And I think the way the team has responded across the whole organization has been exemplary. It's been unbelievable, the amount of empathy and the amount of passion that people have put into their work to get work done. So I'm super proud of the result, but it was one heck of a challenge.
So tell us more about this transformation and what that entails.
So I joined in March 2019, and PMI had already had recognized that actually it's a 50-year-old organization, and many of its processes and workflows are designed to manage a much smaller community. And our community has grown it's become international. It's a global community, million+ certifications, 600,000 members. And we're now in pretty much every single country. So the workflows, the systems, the processes had been designed to cater for largely an American-scaled organization. But we started to see growth over the course of the last 5-6 years in other parts of the world as well. And our systems were creaking, and they were underinvested, and they were old. And we were losing out on a lot of insight and information. And there were multiple levels of complexity. We couldn't get a single picture of our membership. Some members had multiple different services that were being provided by PMI. Others had just single things, services. So it was very difficult to be able to really get to understand all of our members, all of our customers, our community, our stakeholders. So one of the big things we wanted to do was upgrade all of our infrastructure, all of the systems, everything from our ERP systems, CRM systems, accounting systems, everything, our digital marketing capabilities, a complete, uplift, so that we could start to get closer to our customers. And then we had the ability to be able to scale the business into the future. And the second thing we wanted to do was also the organization had really cut its teeth on one particular certification and a suite of certifications around the PMP and the PMBOK. The PMP is like the flagship certification for PMI, and we were really like focused for the last 50 years on driving that. And whilst we'd had some forays into the agile space and other ways of working, we'd never really doubled down on those. So one of the reasons I think that the board selected me was to actually scale the organization, the association out beyond first of all, beyond sort of a US-centric mindset into a more global mindset. And then secondly, to start offering more services and more enablement capabilities to the Project Management Institute members so that they could become more relevant across the globe with different certifications and different skill sets. And so we've embarked on that journey as well. So our transformation was a complete overhaul of the PMI Institute. It even included launching a brand new brand. And if you look at the look and feel of PMI 2 years ago to what the look and feel of PMI is today, you'll see a stark difference. You know, we're vibrant, we appeal to a younger community as well as the older community, different regions, different cultures. You know, we really have transformed a lot, not just in optics, but also culturally as well, and then also technically.
So what are some of the lessons you've learned about leading during a crisis?
Yeah, so I think the first, I mean, gosh, I'm learning every day, but, and the interesting thing is there is no roadmap, right? And in most organizations, there's typically a roadmap that says, okay, you're going to land here, or you're going to land there, or there or thereabouts within a few years, or whatever your time frame is. And with COVID, nobody really knows what the landscape is. I mean, this morning here in London, we're hearing, you know, some pretty stark news about the second wave and, you know, the implications of that second wave, you know, and a lot of organizations are on their knees, you know, the retail sector, the airline sector, et cetera. They're really sort of caught in the headlights, you know, and thinking, how am I going to respond to this other than try and rationalize on my costs? So I think that shock, that sense of the unknown is a huge learning, because most organizations are structured in a way that they have forecasts, they have plans, they have, you know, something that they can go back to their shareholders with and say, hey, look, you know, this is where I will be in a quarter, in 2 quarters, in 3 quarters. Whether they get there or not is a different thing. That's all operational. But here, it's very difficult to predict where we are with COVID and how the world is going to change. And 6 months ago, people were talking about the new norm. You know, I mean, they didn't know what the new norm was. And each individual person that you spoke to would have a different perspective of what that new norm would be. And we're starting to see some of the characteristics of the future way of working, but by no means is that book written yet, you know. And so I think that is one big learning, that there is this unknown unknowns, you know, and we have to navigate our way through it. The one thing I can say, and I feel confident, is that we will overcome it in some way, shape or form, and we will return to some form of normality, which might include us living side by side with some of this, the pandemic, or it might mean something else. Nobody really knows. You know, so I think that's one lesson learned. The other thing is, I would say, you know, when there is this unknown or even an inevitability, it's incredible how people come together. So even though, you know, we were all socially distancing, and, you know, I was just 3 months ago, I was saying, you know, social distancing is probably not the right word. It is, because it actually explains exactly what you're doing. But in reality, I'm even closer to my community and my employees, et cetera, than I ever have been. Last year, you know, before the pandemic, I was flying around meeting the various chapters around the world. And I think I racked up something like 400,000+ miles, you know, traveling around the world. This year, I've done 0. But I've been to virtually every single country. I've been to Brazil, you know, virtually. But in one day, I can visit 3 countries, 3 different chapters, even more, and speak and communicate. Everyone's kind of used to that environment. So it's made me actually closer. I know more people at PMI now, even though I haven't seen them all year, than I did the whole of last year. It's so I think that's another incredible learning. And the third thing I'd say is that. You know, whilst people might mean well and want to continue with their work, you know, we are living in anxious times. And I think empathy plays a really big part now. You know, we're bringing our work home, and people are saying, oh, you know, home is work and work is home. But there are in many cases, not in every case, but in many cases, there are other people living at home. So I'm actually intruding, on their life. My kids are here, my wife is here, and all of a sudden I've, commandeered the entire floor here to do my video shoots and whatnot, and they're used to playing table tennis here. So all of a sudden I'm like an intrusion myself. Not only am I, and I have to be conscious not just of my employees, but also the people that are around them as well. So that empathy extends beyond just the employees. So there are three, big lessons that I've learned as we navigate through, a dramatic change for the Institute and for the world, for that matter.
What are some leadership skills that are essential to have in today's business environment?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot's been written about this, and I think it's developing, as you say, as people are contributing more. But for sure, technology has played a huge part in getting us to where we are now, and is certainly going to take us forward as well. But along with that, comes lots of change, because technology drives automation and commoditization, if you like, of work and work patterns and workflows, codifying and systemizing, automating, making things more repetitive and more industrial, which is great. But it also then frees up, humans to be able to focus on things that are a little bit more value add, if they've got the right skill sets to do that, right? So in the project management field, a big chunk of the work that was done previously was around scheduling and planning, etc. Well, that kind of stuff can be codified now, and there are many systems out there which allow you to do that very, very quickly. And so what does the project manager do now? And we're seeing the development of additional skills that are needed to work in this very sort of volatile world, which is full of shocks and the unknown, and and you need to respond at speed, and you have to be able to sense very quickly. And what we're seeing is, we are seeing ourselves, is this creation of a new way of working, which is taking what you can from technology and expanding that, but then also layering on top of that your own sort of, the world calls soft skills, we call them in PMI, the power skills. And these are the skills that you layer on top to help you become even more effective at what you do. So, collaborative leadership, empathy, understanding of different cultures, an appreciation for the outcomes that you're trying to achieve, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And so we're seeing these skills really develop, and we're seeing the need for them to develop, because organizations need to be super nimble. I mean, it's almost, I like to call it agile plus plus. So it's agile, the iterative approach, but take it to the nth level and say, we need to be able to respond so quickly to changes that we didn't sense, or changes and events that happen that move so fast that they have a significant impact on us, like COVID, for example. Many organizations didn't respond at pace. They didn't take it seriously. And when they were in a position to do something, their teams were not enabled. Yes, they had the technology, but they didn't have the power skills to do the transformation. So we see now organizations becoming almost gymnastic in their desire to have this nimbleness, this flexibility, have structure behind them and experience behind them, so that they don't go chaotic, but then be able to be super nimble, super fast, super reactive, sensing organizations. So I think that's where the world is going. Is it described in a box that everyone can explain and read? Probably not. Different organizations are doing different things. We are trying to put some frame around the gymnastic organization. What are the characteristics? How are organizations standing themselves back up again? What are these extra power skills that are needed to help you transform? And we're trying to put that all together so we can share that with the workforce around the world.
So then what kinds of skills should young professionals be looking to build upon, whether that's soft skills or hard skills? Tell us more.
Yeah, so I think for sure, there is a lot of talk about, that technology is going to take away a lot of jobs, and I think it will take away a lot of repetitive jobs, but that will free up the mind, hopefully, to be able to think more creatively and think more expansively about where direction is going. I think some of the things that now are going to become quite important for project managers and change makers as a whole, and enterprises, is that we have a duty to the planet and we have a duty to our employees. And I think COVID has shown that it's not just about profit, it's about planet and people too. And I think a lot of organizations are realizing, waking up to that, to say we have to be authentic in our social efforts. We have a social responsibility, not a social agenda. I think it's two separate things. And organizations are waking up to become a lot more authentic in their efforts to support the world. And I think project managers can play a huge part in that. And then also as organizations start to stand up again, that they're going to stand up very different to the way they were pre-COVID. And that change is exactly the kind of work that project managers are used to managing. And so I think that you're going to see huge demand for change makers, and you're going to see huge demand for people to get work done in a very structured way, in a very formed way, but layered on top of that, all of these softer power skills and super skills that are going to be required. So I think that if I was a project manager, I would certainly be making sure that I understand the core basics, but I would also be energized in wanting to learn new ways of working, or being able to choose different ways of working. And if you look, there is no prescribed way anymore. There's agile ways, there's hybrid ways, there's the waterfall ways of getting work done. But I think it's the combination of all of those and the ability to be able to flex and move and change depending on the situation that you're in that makes the difference. And I think that the world will be crying out for those type of people. The day of the project managers is going to be is coming.
So tell us about some of the discussions that you're having with your peers and other leaders who are also trying to manage during this time. What are some of the things that they're facing? What are some of the things that they're working on?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people are focused on the social aspects. The thing about COVID versus some of the other more, I would say, tectonic shifts that are happening in the world is that COVID happened very, very fast. And and it's continuing to sort of have an impact on a daily basis that people can see and feel. And we have been talking many times about, and you see all these documentaries about global warming, about carbon footprints, about overfishing in the oceans, about rising water levels and famine and overpopulation and so on and so forth. And people have got almost like I don't know if they've become punch drunk, or they're used to seeing all of these documentaries, and they'll watch a documentary and say, oh, that's shocking, and then they'll flick over and start watching a soccer match or something, and it's just another documentary. It's just become like that. But COVID changed that, because what COVID did was it showed that it's real, and it can come, and it can land on your doorstep, and it can have an impact on an individual and in a family anywhere in the planet. Doesn't matter what geography, doesn't matter what political stance you have, it can impact individuals, family members, etc. And I think that woke up the world. And I've noticed in the conversations I'm having that a lot of organizations are saying, well, we need to be able to sense these shocks that are coming and really embrace them and say these are real. And they're going to happen. So, the rising water levels that we're talking about in the next 30 years will sink Shanghai. If we carry on like we are now, that is going to happen. And so what are we doing about it? And continuing to take oil out of the ground is also having an impact. That overpopulation is also having an impact. Melting snow caps also having an impact, and so on and so forth. All of these things, which in the past people were saying, yeah, I know that that's happening, and I know that the UN it's got its 17 SDGs, and we'll do our little bit. I think that people have started to just say, actually, we want to do more than just a little bit. They want to do a bit more. And I think you're going to see that build a lot. So a lot of the peers I talk with, are very keen to build leadership in those areas. And that's through collaboration, that's through working with other organizations and putting aside sometimes a competitive edge to make something that's bigger and more important. And a lot of finance companies are also, looking at the way organizations are valued. And talent is also looking at the way organizations behave. So that's also spinning on its axes as well, where in the past, talent would say, here's my CV and this is why I'm good for this particular job. And the company would sit back behind the desk and say, well, I'll pick this guy or that guy. Now it's the other way around a little bit, where youth and talent are saying, hang on, will you tell me why I should join you, and what's your social footprint, and what's the way you are operating as a business before I come and join you. It's a big change. So leadership are looking at that and saying, hey, we have to change the way we are. We have to become more empathetic. We have to be much more culturally aware. We must much more responsible for what we stand for in our organization. Of course, we have to meet our shareholders' expectations, but part of those shareholders' expectations are these social responsibility. So bringing that up has been a very big agenda item with many CEOs that I'm talking to. The second one is the need for having change makers throughout the entire organization. With technology the way it's going, and increasing and having much more of a profound impact on automation within organizations, the need for having people that can embrace change is becoming super important. And so it doesn't just sit in one department like the PMO department, but the entire organization needs to be reactive to change and be able to respond as one complete unit. That's a big cultural change as well. And it could even change the way work is configured in the future. The question between having full-time staff or having teams of people that you can tap into, maybe contractors that can come in, fix something and leave and move on, etc., is becoming more of an argument right now for people to say, well, should I be buying into a huge fixed cost of employees, or should I be moving as and when the world takes me, so that I can pull the resources that I need? So that balance is also changing. A lot of changes that leadership are thinking about how they will be configured, both from an operational perspective, from a responsibility perspective, and from a value generation perspective.
So how do organizations continue to stay relevant and innovative at a time when the way they do business can potentially be at stake?
I think that what you've got to do is you've got to try and take some risk off the table that you can, because there's so much of what we've just been talking about has been quite a lot of risk, right, that's on the table. And the more they can take off the table, the better. And one way of doing that is enabling their workforce, right, and making sure that their workforce have got the skill sets required for today and for the future, and that they're technically savvy, they understand business, they understand where the organization is trying to go to. Communication is becoming critical in making that happen, having a single vision, direction of where you want to go, what your aspirations are, and also at the same time recognizing that you may not get there because of something that's outside of your control. Trying to push for a culture that is very sort of flexible, very nimble, that's enabled, that has understanding of the technical developments that are happening in the world, and at the same time are empowered with power skills and structure, I think is a great way forward, because then at least your team has got the capability and it's pervasive throughout the whole organization. So I think that's one thing that leaders are going to spend a fair bit of time on. I think the other one is strategy, and then the ability to be able to convert that strategy into reality. So, I mean, there are no sacred cows anymore. So you can take the opportunity, and we have done it in PMIs, take the opportunity to challenge everything. And unless, because it's been stuck like this developed like this for 50 years, but now is a great opportunity to say, hey, if everything is changing, let's throw this in the bucket and see if this, whatever process or workflow it is, maybe we can improve that as well. So it's a fantastic opportunity for organizations to reinvent and reconfigure and reemerge as something which might be very different to where they were today. And I know that's happening with a lot of organizations, that are pivoting into different ways of working or a different type of business model. So I think that nimbleness, that flexibility plays to that gymnastic organization that we are trying to be, and I see happening within other organizations. As a senior leader, what do I want? I want dedicated people that are committed to the direction that we want to go to and have the skill sets that I need, and they can work across teams and work in a way that's seamless, because they all have a single purpose and complete transparency. And I think many organizations are searching for the same thing under this world of, the VUCA world.
Okay, so let's shift and talk a little bit more about the PMI. Tell us more about the purpose and the objectives and the mission of the organization.
So yeah, the Project Management Institute was started 51 years ago. Last year we celebrated our 50th anniversary. It's a not-for-profit association that advocates for the project manager, and over the last 50 years has developed into a global association. We have about 300 chapters around the world, and our secret sauce is the fact that we have about 12,000, probably more, volunteers that are so dedicated to the work of the project manager that they offer their time and their expertise to help us develop the profession further. Our mission, it's a purpose-driven organization. It's not for profits, but it's not for losses either. So we're a very sharp community leadership team, and our staff are very, very dedicated. We work very closely with these 300 chapters and all of our membership. We have about 3 million people that we represent on a day-to-day basis that have the word project management in their job titles. And what do we do for them? So first of all, we provide global standards that are adopted by organizations and individuals. We provide learnings through white papers, case studies, best practices, etc., techniques and tools to help enable project managers become more relevant for the organizations that they work for their own organization, if they've got their own company. We sense in the community about what the changes are that are happening in the world of project management and the way work gets done. And then we sense that by liaising with our volunteers and our community generally, and a whole host of global organizations through our Global Exec Council. We sense from them the needs and the changes that are happening in the world of projects. And then we change our certifications to reflect those changes, so we keep ourselves relevant as we go forward. So that's kind of like the aim of the organization. We also have a foundation. It's called the PMI which is an education foundation. That's about 30 years old as well. And the purpose of that, it's a charity, and over the last 30 years has helped well over 800,000 children to create their careers and develop careers in the world of project management. And that continues to grow from strength to strength. So that's another way how we give back. We work with the United Nations, and last year we had a target of delivering 50,000 man-hours of project management resource to the 17 SDGs, and in actual fact we did 150,000, so 3 times the target, and I'm very proud of that. And that was all contributed by our volunteers and our staff and the folks that are members and certified holders of the profession. So it's a really purposeful organization. Our number one priority is enablement. We sense and people in the community are involved in the shaping of our services and our capabilities, etc. So they play an active role in shaping the standards, the methods, the tools, the capabilities. And over the course of the last 2-3 years, we started to expand beyond your traditional, what's called waterfall way of working. We made a few acquisitions in the agile space. We built our own agile certification as well. So we started to move into different ways of working, different ways of turning ideas into reality. And we've made a statement in the agile space last year. And this year we're moving even further into new ways. Like we have a new certification around problem solving, design thinking, and another one around what we call the citizen developer, which is taking what I call agile plus plus. It's taking the ability to be agile to the next level. So I love the way that we're now expanding all of our footprint from a very strong base of the PMP into other areas, and hopefully that gives you a small flavor of my world at PMI.
What are some of the organization's key accomplishments since it was founded back in 1969?
Yeah, I mean, oh my God, I mean, last year, the 50th anniversary was my first year, but PMI's 50th year. And, I privilege, an honor to highlight some incredible achievements that have been achieved by the PMI Association over the last 50 years, and then more so over the last 2 years as well. I mean, the big one was that we achieved over 1 million certified members, which was actually one heck of a milestone, a lot of growth from other parts of the world. So that was a big achievement. And we also, the other one was the big achievement, I think, was the change in the look and feel of the organization, the branding work that we did. And I would urge you to take a look, at the PMI.org website, and you'll see it really pops, because we're trying to reach out to a brand new community to say, hey, we're here, and our job is to help you, to get your job done. And that's very relevant right now. So I think that brand landed beautifully. That was a fantastic achievement. I think the transformation work that we have done in light of the fact that we were hit with a COVID pandemic right in the middle of it, and the people that were doing it have not really done transformation, and we managed to pull ourselves through and into a new infrastructure, a new environment is fantastic, and that's just a great example of the passion, because it was passion that drove that, not process or profits. It was all about passion and purpose, and that got everybody up working in the same direction to get stuff done. I saw it with my own eyes, how powerful that is. And very few organizations, as you would know, are successful in executing a successful transformation. They lose a lot of money we managed to do it with the COVID situation around us. It's not over yet, but I'm really, really happy as to where we're at right now, and all credit goes to the team for doing that. So I'm super proud of that.
Tell us more about some of the programs and certifications that the PMI offers.
So there's quite a few certifications, and you can check them all out on the website. The big one is the PMP, which is all around and is complemented by what we call the PMBOK, which is basically a body of knowledge around project management. And it's a certain type of project management, which is around what they call the waterfall way of project management. And that's a very tried and tested way. It's when you already know what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve. Like say you want to build a bridge, and that's a project. And so you know where the start is, you know where the end is, and you know what you need to do in between. And that's your classic project. And that can be applied to a road, a building, a bridge. And in fact, it can apply to all kinds of work where you kind of know what the outcome is. So that's where we've cut our teeth for the last 50 odd years. And we've built different forms of the PMP. So we have one which is about portfolio management, which is managing, a series of programs, and each program is made up of a series of projects. And we also have a program certification. So you can have a project certification, you can have a program certification, you can have a portfolio certification, building up your expertise in how to manage multiple programs. When I was at Vodafone, for example, I had 65 projects or programs of work all going on at the same time. And that to me was a portfolio of projects which I was managing. A very different way to manage, much more emphasis on leadership compared to a particular project. So that's where we have really sort of come from that world, and it's been very, very successful, and it continues to develop. But what we wanted to do also is there are different ways of working. So for example, if you don't know what the outcome is, for example, applications, when you're designing an application today, a computer application, people may not know what the end game is, and they will want to do it in iteration. They'll want to do it in pieces. They'll say, okay, we'll do a sprint, or we'll go a little bit, and then we'll take a look at it and say, okay, let's change this, and then we'll go another way, and let's do this, and you go through a period of iterations. That's a different way of working, different style, and it's got a completely brand new method and mantra to how you do it. It's very different to the waterfall way of working. So that's a new, it's called the agile way of working, and organized, and that built out of the world of application development, software development. And now communities around the world are saying, I want my entire organization to be agile. So can I have an agile sales department, or an agile ops department, or an agile, HR department, etc., so on and so forth. So we're seeing this development of the agile enterprise, So we have some certifications in that space. We made a couple of acquisitions last year called Disciplined Agile and Flex, which are two organizations which have really taken the world of agile. And there are many organizations that have different methodologies around the agile world. And what Disciplined Agile is it creates kind of like an overlay over all of these, saying, choose the one that's best for you, for the project that you've got right now, or the program that you've got right now, or the piece of work you're trying to do right now. You don't have to use one specific type, but here's a set of frameworks that you can use that can help you choose the right, what we call the choose your wow, choose your way of working. So we started to build a space in there, and now we're developing even further. So there's a few more, and there's a number of certifications, by the way, for Disciplined Agile. There's 3 different certifications that you can take, which take you up different levels. And now we're moving into other spaces too. So we know that our skills is becoming important. We know design thinking is becoming super important, and it's required for all different types of work, regardless of what system you use. So we're building up a certification around design thinking. We call it wicked problem solving, and then taking one step further, and what we call a leapfrog is taking us into the world of citizen developer, which is around the ability to be able to create solutions and applications to problems without having to pass them to an IT department to create the application for you, but being able to have the skill sets to be able to do it yourself, and thereby unlocking value of change makers across the globe, regardless of what industry you're in. So that's what I'm really excited about. But it's our leapfrog now, taking us from where we were to some new areas that we can work in and start to build a reputation in. And again, there are some certifications that will be coming out by the end of the year in that space. In fact, next month. And then finally, we haven't left the the traditional PMP behind, because we've now started to look at specific areas of specialization, and there'll be a certification coming out around construction, which is just double down a little bit more around developments that are happening in the more traditional project management, but in the construction space, and we'll look for others as well as we go along through the year. So that's a broad, sort of very high-level view across all of the vast majority of the certifications that PMI offers.
So how can professionals who are not project managers benefit from some of what the PMI has to offer?
Absolutely. Actually, that's a great question. And, I think that one of the things that we're focusing on is this thing called 5 to 75. And it's part of our strategy. 5 to 75 actually represents age group, 5 to 75. And we feel as though project management is a skill set that's a life skill. A 5-year-old child can pick up some skills which may not be as specialized as a project manager, but I'll give you an example. Managing stakeholders is like managing your parents. Managing your time is like managing, how much time am I going to spend playing Xbox versus doing homework? What's my responsibility? So even kids start to pick up skills that we can then say, hey, these are nice skills that you can develop and build upon, and they can create the platform, if you like, for project management, a career in project management in the future. Managing stakeholders, scheduling your time, understanding what work needs to be done, working stuff out from first principles, managing different people in your peers at school, building leadership skills, etc. You can pick these up at 5, and they're relevant for you all the way through your entire, even if you choose a career like I did in finance or in sales. When I was in sales, I wasn't a project manager. I was in sales, and I was running 6,000 people around the world, multiple programs and projects going on at the same time, responding to RFPs and all sorts, all around the world. I was a project manager. And when I was doing finance and I was doing the month end or the year end, okay, it was a repetitive thing that happens, but each one is different. That was a project. It had a start, it had a middle, it had an end, So I was doing project work, even though I didn't see it as project work until someone showed me what I was doing and the commonality between sales and finance and HR and legal and building a dam and building a bridge. There's tremendous commonality in terms of the mindset that's required to make that happen. And that's why I think absolutely it's a career that anybody can pick up from the age of 5, and they can develop it in any direction they want, and the skill sets that they learn will be applicable in whatever they do going forward, right the way through to when they decide to hang up their spurs and say, that's it, I'm done, I want to retire. And even then, they may find themselves using those same skills. And we're trying to complement that with the PMI Education Foundation. We have another micro certs around helping people who may not have the word project management in their job title, but they find that they've got a task that they need to get done. They're not sure how to do it. And we have created tools to help them pick up some core skills which might be able to help them in their job without it being a professional certification as such in that particular topic. So yeah, we're doing that too.
What would you say are some of the biggest skill gaps that you're seeing in the industry today?
So I think that there are a few skills gaps. I think the first one is because of the way that actually it's a real big one. Because of the way business has evolved, we have functional departments. Like we have a finance department, we have a tax department, we have a HR department, and we've always advocated one should be a specialist in a particular function, and you should be, and you can build a fantastic career in that particular function. And like finance, for example, I spent 10 years in finance, had a fantastic career in finance, but I was lucky because I got the opportunity to move into sales, totally different. Again, different specialization, different mindset. Had I had that mindset 10 years earlier, I would have probably been just as good a finance guy, but had a much better appreciation for sales as well. Why I couldn't do that is because technology was not there to help me in that situation. 30 years ago, as a finance guy, I had to know about double entry. I had to know about the trial balance and balance sheet and everything. And ERP systems were just starting, and I remember Mars Confectionery was there, but they were putting in SAP, and it was like the very, very first version of it. And people were amazed that hey, where was this going to go? And where did it go? It went to a point where work, which is typically knowledge-based, is being codified, is being systemized. And so you don't really need to know it. because why keep that in your head when it can be stored in a database and you can pull it out with the right kind of questions and you can pull out the information that you need? So why learn a bunch of prescribed method, which is driven by statute, like in finance or in legal or HR, whatever. So, but actually that's what we've done. We've created these teams of people that are specialists in a specific area. And I think when you look where the world is going, it's going to, if all of that sort of work is going to become codified and systemized, like in legal, why learn all the case law when you can have it all in a database and it can go in now with technology, like AI, etc. You should be able to find cognitive links between different cases and pull out the cases that are relevant for the case you're working on without you having to do all of that yourself based upon the data that's there. So that frees you up to do a lot of other stuff. And what it frees you up to do actually is not learn more legal stuff, but actually learn more about other parts of the business. So I actually see that where there's a skills gap there's a skills gap in people who can move from one function to another function to another function and develop their general management skills. I'm super lucky I got the chance to do that. It has helped me a lot, for sure. Could it have helped me more? Yes, absolutely. It could have helped me a hell of a lot more. If I'd known, I didn't know I was doing what I was doing. It wasn't predefined. I just sort of wandered from one to another. Eventually realized I had all these extra skills. And I think as people start to realize that you can actually create that path in advance, so you get this general experience of running an organization, you will create far better leadership. You'll be able to rely more on technology to be able to do all the mundane stuff so that you focus your energies on the things where there are skills gaps today, which is all around the power skill. It's all around using technology in the right way, because technology can be used in the wrong way, right? So it's all about building responsibility around people and planet and also profit. So I think that having that generalized view, and one of the things we advocate in PMIs that is super important for project managers to have an understanding of the business. You don't have to be an accountant, you don't have to be a commercial whiz, but you have to understand where your business is going and how does your business create value. And when you know that, it puts context to the projects that you're doing. And if you embrace that, then it allows you to make decisions that your leadership and others will say, actually, that's a really smart decision, because it's in line with where we're trying to go as a business, not as the individual project. And I think organizations around the world are lacking that today. And I think that you will see what in PMI, we call that the emergence of the project economy, where there will be less emphasis on functional departments and more emphasis of teams of people that move from department to department getting work done. And I think that shift is an example of the skills gap and how organizations are going to deal with it in the future.
So tell us more about that. What can leaders start doing to help start breaking down some of those functional silos that we see within organizations?
It's a good question, and I think that the first thing is understanding that those are silos. And look, most universities and organizations, etc., they will advocate, that that's the way work has been organized for many, many years, and they're right to do so, right? But when you start as a business and you start off yourself in your own startup, and I did that, I was everything. I was 1 minute I was a sales guy, next minute I was doing the finance, next minute I was talking to the banks. I was doing everything, and that gave me a fantastic grounding as well, which just brought all of these pieces together. So appreciating that first of all, that there's the leadership to appreciate that there's a silo and there may be a better way of doing things is step number one. And then what is the way of doing things? And that is by looking at how much technology is taking away the mundane work and how much can it? Because some of that technology is not expensive and it can do a lot of good for your organization. But having the lean forward mindset to say, okay, I'm going to do that, and that's going to free up my people. And then instead of then taking that as a saving, use that capacity to upskill your people in new ways of working. And I think understanding how you can tap into technology here and there. I'm not saying create, you've probably heard me say, we're trying to create Iron Man, where you've got humans and machines working together versus the Terminator, which is just a machine. I think that the strength is going to come in Iron Man type situations where you've got humans working with machines. And so learning and helping organizations and their employees to pick up those skills is going to be critical. I think working with organizations and associations like myself and PMI and the Chartered Institute of Accounting and marketing will help, because I think all these associations also are going to start recognizing that the ultimate single goal for all of those is to help get work done. And it may be a specialized field in marketing or in finance, but if a lot of that's getting codified, you're left with the ability to execute, the application. So how do we encourage people to do that application? So I think leaders and associations and academics are going to start looking at that and start saying that, we need to build not certifications, a way of working for the youth and for people today at work, how they can embrace that. And I think that's going to be a huge opportunity for organizations like myself and organizations that embrace this new way of working in the future.
So what advice do you have for young professionals who are looking to build their skills and their careers, as well as more seasoned professionals who are looking to update their skills and continue to stay relevant in the future?
Yeah, great question. And, I have a son who's gone to university, and he was asking me the same question, how do I put my best foot forward? And I told him that, in my day, when I was putting CVs together for myself, I would be told that, you should try and keep it really concise. And I think one should keep things concise. If you can say things in a shorter, get your message across in a shorter amount of time and less words, it's better. It means you've really thought about it. But I think that one of the things that traditionally CVs have done is that in the struggle to keep things short, people leave their hobbies to like one line on the CV, and the rest of it's full of all the stuff that you can do, thinking that that's the most important thing. In my mind, going forward, is that one line captures who you really are, who you are as a person. That line is the line that one needs to expand. That's your power skill. Because all the other stuff is going to be codified, automated. Anyone can do that. It's what makes you, the fact that you collect stamps or you like rollerblading, or the fact that you're an actor, or the fact that brings you and your individual personality. And that's what organizations are going to look for. And your values as well. We're going to come out of that piece, not out of the fact that you know how to do a trial balance and a balance sheet. That's a given. That's table stakes. And you're coming out of a university or school or an apprenticeship, that's given. If I want to take risk off the table, I want to look at that one line and see if that one line is bigger than one line, and the guys or girls got confidence to make that a paragraph and say, that's me. I think that's the first thing I would say, because that's what people are looking for. They want to take risk off the table. You've got to have the prerequisites, but who are you? And I think that's super important. The second piece of advice I would give is, if you're talent, then you have choice, not the company. The way the world is right now, the company sits behind a desk, the guy comes in, he's dressed in a suit, or the girl comes in looking really smart, and the company sits there and prods questions at the individuals, try and suss them out. And they're trying to take risk off the table to say who's the best candidate for them. But actually, the best candidate is the one that's really scrutinizing the company, saying, is this the company that I want to be associated with? Is this the company that looks after its P&L and its people and the planet the way I want them to? Is it focused in the areas that I feel important about? So I think you're going to see a shift happen where talent says, okay, if you want me, why are you doing that in that country? Why did this happen over here? And organizations, and because technology makes all this transparent now, it's open for everyone to see. And that's why I'm saying, is it a social agenda or a social responsibility? So I think my advice to people starting off, university grads, is, improve on your power skills, develop those. That's what makes you the person that you are. They're the things that people will look for in the future. Secondly, ask questions about the companies that you want to work for. Identify what's important to you and see if you can search for it in the organizations. And then you'll have much more context when you're talking to them about why you're the right person for that organization. I would do that. If you're midway through your career, you need a mentor. I'm super lucky. Ross Perot was a mentor. He said one day, Sunil, everyone calls you Dr. No, because you're the finance guy, you keep saying no to everybody. You need to know what it's like to say yes. So I'm going to ask you to move into the sales department. It wasn't me waking up one morning and saying I want to work in sales. It was my leader who turned around and said, you don't know what it's like, how hard it is, what life is like in the sales department, because you're sitting there in finance just saying no to everything, and you don't realize these guys have been working so hard. So you start as a sales guy and you make it work there, and let's see how you do. And that sense of leadership and mentoring drove me further. So I would say, for those in the middle of their career, search out a leader, learn about them, get to know them. If you can't get to know them, read about them, find out how they're moving, and learn that from the new stream of leaders that are coming out, that seem to have figured out directionally where we're going, because like we said earlier, we don't really know yet, but directionally that seems to be the right thing, things that you can empathize with and wrap yourself around those folks and see how they go and learn from that. And I would say that. And then finally, I would say, we are in a world of continuous learning. There are organizations that continue to support people in their late, 60s, 70s in learning. I learn every single day, and I love it. That's what makes, the amount of learning I've had to do in the last year is phenomenal. It's great, and I think that have a learning mindset. Things are moving super fast. We have a chance to make a difference, and each and every one of us. So I would say that.
Well, that's great advice for both young professionals and more seasoned professionals. So thank you so much, Sunil.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you next time on Sarder TV.